I think as we continue to look at preparing students for the future, getting evidence-based learning introduced to students even as early as the 6th grade class that we're seeing here is really important to the problem solving, the critical thinking skills that we're expecting students to have when they leave high school. Mrs. Barr has been really excited about being involved with this movement in the science community and has really gotten involved in that, has introduced it into her classes. She's got this spark for it.
Hi, my name is Jody Barr. I teach 6 through 12 science at Harvard Public School. Today's lesson builds off of our anchoring phenomena, which had to do with the kudu and acacia tree and the relationship between this plant and animal. What we will be investigating is the senses that plants have to different stimulus in their environment. This entire unit, it will be somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks, but we cover a multitude of different standards. I mean, we're looking at the plants and the different parts of the plants, as well as, looking at the interactions between a plant and an animal. The time spent on lesson planning, I feel initially the preparation for myself was a lot, but now it's actually less time because I kind of know the direction the students are going to go towards, but I'm also more prepared. But I think that's in everything, any lesson that you do. This is a fairly early in the unit, so we're still trying to explore and I'm still trying to get them to give me a little bit more in the details. A lot of times they'll give me like a brief description between the plant and the animal. Later on in part of one of the videos that they're going to see, a plant actually turns towards the lights. But what we've found is kids don't understand that plant is actually turning, and it's turning because the sun's coming towards it, but they don't make that connection. So hopefully the students are starting to make probably a more detailed observation versus just a very broad observation. We start the class always with a review of what we did yesterday because I just want to get them to kind of remember what we did yesterday so that we can start progressing into what we're going to do today. Yesterday, we talked about how plant behavior helps in survival, according to the driving question board, right? Yes. Okay, and last night, I asked you guys to briefly describe or write about what we observed about the tobacco plant. Yes, no? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Yes. Yes. Okay. I want you to quietly share within your group about the observations you guys made. So how do I get groups to have productive conversations? A lot of it comes down to that classroom monitoring, constantly being at different groups within, even that 2-minute clip. Sometimes I would move from one group to the other after 30, 45 seconds, just to make sure we continue to have that productive conversation. So next I'll jump into today's lesson, and we always start with what the question is for that day, and I allow them a couple minutes to write any questions they have based off of the question itself, and then we will jump right into these video clips and making observations. I've prepared myself I watch all the videos prior to and make my own observations so that I can help guide students that may struggle. And I also come up with a few questions that I would like to ask the class as we progress if we're not going the direction I would like.
Like the sundew, it makes itself very attractive, oozing nectar across the brim of each leaf.
The engagement piece of the student, they're all engaged because they never know if I'm going to be next to them and I might write for them or I might ask them a question. And they're excited because they know that there's no judgment. All right, what did you talk about?
What we talked about is that it has 6 hairs, and if you trigger one of those hairs, then it's like a lever. You have 20 seconds until it closes.
It's like a lever?
Yeah, when it moves, it's there's close starts to close starts.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about levers, right? Pressure point. Oh my goodness gracious, we're including vocabulary. Wow. There's a few questions that I asked them to answer, and part of that was for them to actually write complete sentences with the correct punctuation, and if they were referring to a specific example that we witnessed today, that we observed, they needed to put that specific example in their sentence. Students who can communicate effectively definitely are able to make connections and understand concepts much better. Okay, so but why are those little leaves, do you think?
Follow the sunlight.
Okay, maybe they follow the sunlight. That's a really good observation. So
Maybe they're trying to catch more carbon dioxide
Why does a plant need carbon dioxide?
so it can make oxygen. It's because it's like making. Because when it's.
What? No way.
I cannot talk.
No, you're right. You're onto it.
Like
So
it's
those.
like it's waving up and like they need to do.
So you're saying this needs. It's trying to reach carbon dioxide,
Yeah.
and you said what?
I think it follows the sunlight.
Follows the sunlight. What are we talking about? At the end, you guys are talking about sunlight, carbon dioxide,
It's trying to.
oxygen. What is that?
It's trying to keep it alive and produce.
Do you know what we're really talking about right now?
The plant that makes the plant that dances.
Photosynthesis.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're talking about. Savannah, I want you to share your part of it. What did you say that you thought why those little leaves were dancing?
I thought the leaves were following the sunlight.
Okay, following the sunlight. And what did you
I
say?
thought the little leaves were moving up and down to catch all the carbon dioxide.
Okay, and why did it want to catch carbon
So it
dioxide?
can produce oxygen.
Okay,
and
well,
keep itself alive.
yep, keep itself alive. And in the end, what were we really talking about there? Photosynthesis. So, guys, something that we have not yet spent a lot of time talking about yet, right? All of a sudden, you guys already kind of have an idea as to what photosynthesis is. Actually, getting students to talk is not the problem. The problem is the teacher willing to listen? And you have to be willing to accept some of those answers that may be kind of off the wall, like the plant was green. Yes, I mean, we all know that, but at the same time, maybe that's the statement that then you can kind of question and probe to get them to get to that critical thinking piece. For instance, we have not yet spoke about photosynthesis, but yet that group was talking about light, carbon dioxide, all of a sudden oxygen, and I was able to introduce a concept to the class prior to. So then when we go and talk about photosynthesis later, they can relate that back to that experience earlier in class. So hopefully then the connection's much tighter. I end the class with a couple questions or allow them an opportunity just to write about what they observed today, and then end with the question that we're going to ask tomorrow. And remember, we're still working on this question, what do plants do to help with survival, right? And we started discussing the kudus and the acacia tree. And remember, I don't know if you guys saw this, I went ahead and those notes we made on the first day, I just left them right up here, right? Because we're still trying to solve the problem of what happened to the kudus. We will start looking at actual parts of the plant through pictures and actual plant parts that we've started in class. So is it important for students to understand the concept that we were covering today in order to move on to tomorrow? I would love that all students are going to make that connection on the first lesson, but sometimes it's the next lesson that then I can relate back to prior experiences, and then they can make the connection. You know, we talked a lot about today the different parts of the plant, but yet we've never really talked about those parts. So I think then tomorrow when we dive into the different parts of the plant, that if I were to ask them to watch those videos again, those observations are going to be much more detailed. So some of the things that hopefully you guys saw in this video was, if you notice, I went to different groups, and maybe you witnessed me writing notes for certain students. Those students either struggle with spelling and they get stuck on that spelling, or like one of my students is extremely bright, just hates to write. But then sometimes he'll forget. So I wanted to make sure he has something to go back and refer to tomorrow when we come back to class tomorrow.